Here's the Fox and Grapes cuckoo clock that I got on Marketplace for a total price of $53 to include shipping. It has the count wheel in it, which makes it an older clock. There is no makers on the movement, but being it has a count wheel on it, it was made in the 1950s or prior. The case is in really good shape. The topper, however, is broken, so I have to fix that also. It could be glued back on fairly easily. But the first thing I need to do is take the hands off, take the chains off to get the movement out, and clean up the movement. So that's what we're going to be doing. As always, you want a container to put your parts in. So the hands have two nuts on them because it is an older clock. It might be a Herbert Hur because the way the nuts are set up. It has the square arbor. A lot of the Herbert Hur minute hands, well, Herbert Hur uses square minute hands. So the bird is not anything fancy. The tongue does tilt, but other than that, it doesn't have articulated wings. I really need a cameraman to film me as I work on these things. The chains are all twisted up, and so I have to untwist them. So stand by until I get the chains off. One thing I am seeing with this clock, let me get something to point with, is this piece right here. It's bent down. Hopefully I don't break it when I straighten it up. It's supposed to be parallel with the ground, and it's not. So hopefully my $53 investment is not broken. To take the chains out, you just grab the link that you put the weights on, hold it in your hand, take a pair of pliers, twist, grab a hold of one of the links, twist the connector that you got in your hand, and it opens up the chain. Put it in your parts box, and then you can pull the chain right out. I'm going to do that to the other chain, so stand by. With the chain out, the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to take this pendulum leader wire out. And the way you do that, you put a screwdriver in here, open up this top section to where it hooks onto this wire, and that way you could take that out. The pendulum leader wire here needs to be straight as possible, and you don't bend that to get the clock in beat. You want it straight as possible. I take out the pendulum leader wire, that way it don't get bent up as you take the movement out of the clock. Next thing you want to do is take the bellows out, and it looks like in this case the bellows are glued in, So I'm gonna have to get out my tool to get the bellows off. I wish they wouldn't have glued them in, but somebody has worked on this clock before, and instead of putting screws in the screw hole here, they glued the bellows in, which makes it difficult for the next person who works on the clock. Now you can take a utility knife and cut this glue down, but if you watch my other videos on novelty, the quarter-hour cuckoo clocks, if you take one of these Master Mechanics, this just the name of this tool, but it's a reciprocating tool that when you turn it on, this part vibrates back and forth. It barely goes back and forth. That way I can turn it on and go underneath the bellows. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do. They use, I don't know what kind of glue they use, but it's super strong. So even if you damage up the bellow a little bit by taking this out, you can still put it back into place, and using screws and a nail like they were designed to go in the first place, you can put the bellows back in and where they will function. So stand by and let me take the bellows out. They left a nail in when they glued it, and so my tool had trouble getting it out, and as I got it out, it did break open. However, if I was to put it in the exact same spot, it will cuckoo. So this one ain't gonna cuckoo because it's broke open, but you can put them in the exact same spot even with damage like this, and they will cuckoo again. I might have to glue it. I didn't want to, but my tool had to go through a nail, and anyway, it's out. I still have to take the other bellow out, so stand by. This bellow came out a lot easier than the other bellow. There wasn't no nails, and I just like using that saw because it's a lot easier. Not saw, but reciprocating vibrating tool, because it's a lot easier than taking a knife and going at it trying to get the glue unstuck. But this one is not damaged whatsoever. It still functions. So now it's time to take, and always want to leave these wires with the right, these lift wires with the right bellow. The longer one goes to the high note, which is the first bellow that I took out. But if you don't put them with the right bellows, you might have trouble adjusting the bellows once you get it back in the clock. So I'm assuming that the bellows worked fine before, And so that's why I take a rubber band and connect it to at least one bellow. Now it's time to take the movement out. You have 4 screws. So I'm going to undo those 4 screws. I already got the bird disconnected from the door. So once I remove those 4 screws, I'll be able to take the movement out. I had the movement out. It is extremely dirty. And right here you can see where that post is bent. So I'm going to see if I can straighten that out. But first thing I do is check for pivot wear. If it has too much pivot wear, it's a one-day clock. A one-day cuckoo clock can have some pivot wear. An 8-day cuckoo clock, in my personal opinion, cannot have pivot wear. You also want to do a function test to see if the cuckoo is working properly. And if you watch my other videos, this wire that trips the cuckoo, this is the wire that brings the cuckoo out. If they are too close, they will not work. If they are too far apart, they will not work. They have to be just right. When you clock cuckoos, if it is coming in and out of the door, that's because the 2 wires are too far apart. And if the cuckoo cannot go all the way back in the door, that is because the wires are not adjusted right either. On a count wheel, when I set up my count wheel, I will make sure that this lever right here that goes into the notches of the count wheel, and it doesn't matter which notch it is, just make sure that this lever is all the way to the left of the count wheel when you screw it down. And if you don't, when it gets time for the 12 o'clock position, it might cuckoo off. So I need to take this thing apart and clean it. I got my ultrasonic cleaner on. I got it set for 35 degrees Celsius, and I have my homemade cleaning solution in it. You can watch my other videos and find out what I use. Also, this wire right here has got to do with the action of the bird coming back in the door. If your bird is not popping back into the door, more than likely it's because this wire is loose and it needs to have a couple more wraps around it to make it pop back in the door. Another thing, these pieces here that hold this cuckoo rod into place, they could be spread out too much, or they could be spread in too much. If they're spread out too much, your cuckoo is not going to operate properly. If they're tightened up too much, your cuckoo rod is not going to close with the snap properly. So there's quite a few things to look at when you're looking at a movement for the very first time. And like I said, the most important, the biggest issue right now is this lever being bent. Hopefully, because it's brass, hopefully I can straighten it out without breaking it. But I need to take this thing apart. First thing I need to do is remove this minute wheel with minute pinion pin to get that off. put in my parts box, which will allow this little washer to come off, which will allow this wheel here to come off, which will allow this wheel here to come off. And this is what functions the cuckoo on the hour and the half hour, as these two little notches here. One notch is going to be bigger. I take that back, not on this type of clock, not necessarily. Underneath this is a compression washer. This compression washer is what controls the minute hand as it rotates. If the minute hand goes past 12 o'clock, let's say it goes past 1 and then it drops, it's because this compression washer is too loose and it needs to be tightened up to control the this wheel right here. If it's too loose, see how I spin that? That's too loose. But once I put that washer and cotter pin back in, that will tighten that up. A screw to take the count wheel off. And like I said, I'm not worried about that count wheel. I'll put it back on. And then taking the 4 nuts off to take the movement apart. If you have never worked on one of these movements before, even if you have, take pictures prior to taking a movement apart. That way you know how to put it back together. Take pictures of both the front and the rear and all sides. Look at those pictures to make sure that you can see them clearly. There's been times when I've taken a movement apart and didn't look at my pictures and I couldn't figure out how to put it back together properly. This here, which goes into the count wheel, also has a tab on it that goes into this Pac-Man type cam. When I take this apart here, you should be able to see. Here's the Pac-Man type cam that this notch goes into. The flywheel, the third wheel with warning pen. I'm not going to put the cuckoo bird in my parts cleaner. You hand wash those with soap and water and a toothbrush. And that, as far as I'm going to go, as far as taking this thing apart. I will take a toothbrush and clean off all the oil and dirt and stuff before it goes into my cleaner, because as I said in my previous videos, ultrasonic cleaner is like a dishwasher. You pre-wash your dishes, and therefore you'd want to pre-wash your movements before you put them in your cleaner. That way you save on your cleaning solution. Well, here's going to be the moment of truth on whether I could straighten this out. It's almost parallel to the ground. But here's the issue, is the Virgin crutch assembly pin has broken off into this hole here. So hopefully I have another Virgin crutch assembly, or if not, I'm going to have to figure out how to put a pin in this Virgin crutch assembly. You get what you pay for, I guess. We're at 20 minutes on this video. I'm not going to make it any longer, as it's going to take about 3 hours to upload this 20-minute video. So, when there's, you want to check the ratchet assemblies. I got a video on the different types of ratchet assemblies. This one has got a wire that goes over here to the click that keeps the click into the slots, and you have two, so you want to check them both. So anyway, we'll come back in the next video and start putting this thing together. And hopefully I can find a Virgin crutch assembly that will fit this clock. You want to measure the length, and you want to measure the diameter, and most importantly, 1 day and 8 day Virgin crutch assemblies are made differently. It has to do with this piece right here. So I want to try to find one. I got some spare parts. Hopefully I got one that'll fit this clock. Hope you're enjoying this video. Please hit the subscribe button, and God bless.